Hello everybody, I am Ben from Team Panic, and I really love the Hexbug Battlebot toys. Sure, they are just toys, but they are still a lot of fun to drive around and hit things and hit each other with. But I've got one problem with them. That is these controllers, and it's a little problem. These controllers are too damn small, especially for somebody like me who has freakishly big hands. And yeah, it kind of stops me from using the Hexbugs quite as much as I would like to. So today I want to do something about this. We're going to do some hardware hacking, and what I want to do is I want to try and jam the guts of this Hexbug remote into this controller. Now, while this controller looks a whole lot like the pistol grip controller that is used by a lot of the BattleBots builders, especially Hypershock, it's not quite the same. If I hold this up to my microphone and click the trigger for you, there is a distinct telltale sign of buttons being pressed inside here. Real controllers like this have a linear response to them, so they don't click. However, the Hexbug controller is the same type of thing. It is just buttons to do the bits that you want it to do. So we should be able to mash these two things together fairly easily, I hope. So first up, we're going to look at the star of the show. This is an old school version of the Hexbug controller. It's only got the one weapon button and then the control buttons and then the 4 slider position switch in under here, and that's about all it's got around the outside. So let's crack this thing open. There are literally just clips on the side here, and all we should need to do is poke at these until they, there we go, that's 1 and that's 2. Cool. And then we can just open this up, and just like that we've got all of the plastic buttons off. And oh boy, the switch is interesting. You can see here we've got multiple contacts, and that is not a regular looking slide switch, which is fun. The button at the top here, the weapon button, is literally just a regular old push button with 2 contacts, so we can solder to that no problem. These guys, however, are little dimples, which those little dimples are just a metal piece which make contact with tracks on the circuit board underneath, and they will be held in place with tape because that is the way that those are done. Let's see if we can. Cool. So there you go. That's our 2 contacts in there. You can see these nice little half circles around the outside. That's 1 contact, and then we've got this other contact in through the middle here. And this push button literally just makes contact between the outside edge where this hole goes through and the little divot hits that middle section in there. I might just do a quick little bit of testing on this, see if I can work out if there's a nice little thing that I can do and have a slide switch for at least a couple of channel changes. But other than that, that is what is inside our little Hexbug controller. So now we know what's in that Hexbug controller, we now need to know what's inside this, which is our donor controller with the nice clicky buttons inside it. So this is held together with a lot of screws. It also features an actual battery compartment and a power on and off switch. So we're going to attempt to use all of that stuff in the build here, because it would be nice to be able to power the Hexbug controller off of AA batteries, which is what this controller takes. That would be fantastic. And there we have it. You'll see those same type of buttons that was inside the Hexbug controller to run the weapon is what is being used by the rocker here. We've got those 2 nice little switches that aren't actually working all that well right now, because I'm assuming this is held in by the other side of the clam case. Yeah, in here there's some notches to hold that circuit board in place. And here we go. This is the circuit board for the donor controller, and it has done some weird things. I was expecting that each of these buttons, so there's a button there and there and there and there, those little groups of 4, I was expecting that all of those would have like a common ground, and then they would just pin each one into the microcontroller. The microcontroller doesn't have enough pins to support 4 buttons and then all the other stuff it needs to be doing. So what they've actually done is this weird multiplexing setup, which is interesting but not helpful for me, because I now need to cut some of the tracks on this board to make everything work the way I want it to work. Cool, so this should mean that all we need to do is remove this little chip out the back. In comparison, the Hexbug controller is a lot more normal. So I've mapped out the most important things that you need to know here. So this up here is the two connections to the button that runs the weapon system. It's an actual physical push button, and then all of these are the actual output pads on the controller itself. So you can see that a whole lot of these are tied together, and all of those are tied into either the negative or the positive. I can't quite remember at the moment, but I'll work that out in a minute. Doesn't really matter. All you need to know is all of these here are all tied together, and then the other side will be tied to a pin on the microcontroller. So realistically, we need to get those other pins that we had from the donor controller, set them all up so that we've got one into the tie and then others into the microcontroller, and we should be good to go. I've also mapped out where all of the switch positions go, and as you can see, when the switch is in position 1, we've got contacts on the black, on the red dot, and on the blue cross. And then on 2, we've got black, blue, and green, and then on 3, we've got black, green, and red, and then on 4, we've got a combination of 4 of them. So I am probably not going to run a full setup here. In fact, what I'm thinking I'm going to do is I am going to use a switch to switch between these two, because you can see in both cases we've got black cross and blue cross. So what we can do is tie all of those together and then just have a switch that switches back and forth between the red and the green here, and we can just change between channel 1 and 2. That should be good enough for this hack job, and then anybody else that I'm fighting against with Hexbugs can use 3 and 4 easily, and there will be no problem. Okay, here we go. Critical moment in this build process. We have the Hexbug controller hooked up to power only through this board. It has a new switch that will go back and forth between 1 and 2, and it has an extended IR transmitter. So if something doesn't work now, then we're going to need to basically scrap this board and do a whole nother one. Like I said, critical point. Let's power up. So we should power up Witch Doctor and hope we can get Witch Doctor to do something. Ah, yes! Look at that! Ha ha ha! The Frankenstein mess of electronics actually works. Now, if we turn the weapon off and flick the switch, we should no longer have control. Ha ha ha! Alright, now all the wiring is in. We have all the buttons hooked up from one side to the other, and we have the extra button for the weapon all hooked up. And while my hot glue gun is heating up for a bit of protection on all of that stuff, I'll show you what I've done to the actual casing so that we can fit in the rest of the things we need to fit in. First of all, we have a hole here, which is going to be a thumb button, which is where this button is going to go for the weapon. And then up the front here, I have a nice little 3D printed piece that is going to mount the IR LED in the back, so you can point the actual controller at the Hexbug to get it to move properly. Then for the final switch, which actually does the channels and everything, there was this antenna up the top here, but it is literally just a piece of rubber that doesn't have anything in it. So I'm removing that entirely, and we're mounting this guy right up in here. So the switch pokes out the antenna hole, which I thought was quite funny, and I quite like the idea of. And there you have it. We have one upgraded Hexbug controller. We've got a nice big controller with a weapon button, a power light for the controller, a channel selection switch up in the top here, and a power switch on the back. So if we turn this whole thing on, we should have a power light at the front. And then if we turn on Witch Doctor and give this a go, And there we go. I love this thing. As compared to a conventional Hexbug controller, this thing is so much easier to use and a lot of fun to use. So much so that I'm actually considering taking this second controller that I've got and also converting it over to Hexbug. I might change the switch up though, so that this one is running on channels 3 and 4 rather than 1 and 2. That's going to be a little bit more complex with the wiring, but I think I could do it. That would be good fun. Then I'd have 2 of these that I can run around and have Hexbug's battles with. But yeah, I'm really, really happy that I've done this. I hope you guys have enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next video.